welcome to Kel Knits. My name is Kelly and I am an Aussie knitter currently living in Sydney, Australia with my little family. I hope you are very well and welcome to my knitting podcast. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Camaragal people who are the traditional owners of the land where I am filming this video today and pay my respect to their elders both past, present, future and emerging. I thought I would do one of those everything I knit in 2022 videos. I enjoy watching other people's videos where they review all of their knits, and I think it's actually quite a good opportunity to look back at what you've done and think about what were the styles that really worked for you, what are the things that actually you knit and then put away and never wore again. And what are the things that you find you keep reaching for, so that hopefully that will inform my knitting plans going forward so that I can really focus on knitting things that I love and will get a lot of use out of. So that's my plan. I don't have all of my knits here with me because I'm sure many people are like this when you move. I still have things kind of in boxes and all around the place, and I am not going to take the time, to pull them all together. That's going to be a really big project that I have planned coming up in the next few weeks to really sort out all of my yarn and stash and knits and figure all of that out, but I haven't done it yet, and if we wait until that project gets finished, then this video will never happen. But I use Ravelry to record what I'm working on. I really like that as a kind of documenting. So I've got my computer here in front of me and I've opened up a million tabs of all my knits so I can kind of go through them, and I'll insert pictures as I go, and some I might have videos of as well that I will do. It's probably going to be a bit of a longer video, maybe. I don't know, we'll see how quickly I talk and get through everything, but I might need to do this in sections. So let's get started. The first knit I finished in 2022, which I finished on the 4th of January, was the school run headband by Penrose Knits. She has, I think she has about 3 patterns in that group: the headband, the beanie and some mittens. I have the pattern for the mittens, but I haven't made them, but I have made the headband, I think, twice. And it's got this cute little picot edge, and I knit it in Filcolana Arvetta in the colorway Burgundy, and I adore that color. And it's one that I wore a lot. So it's definitely a pattern I would knit again. I think it's a great gift knit as well. It's really straightforward and easy. And because the way it's constructed, it's doubled over, means that it's really lovely and warm as well. And if you've watched my other videos, you know I love a good headband. There'll be more coming up. So yeah, I can see more of those in my future. The next knit that I finished was the Leaf Sweater Winter Edition by Melanie Reinert, and I really enjoyed this pattern. I really enjoy the top, and I did get quite a bit of wear out of it in the winter. Don't like the yarn that I used. So I used the We Are Knitters, the Petite wool in the color wine. There's a bit of a theme with the colorways here, isn't there? You can see what my favorite color is. But it's just, I don't know how to describe it without looking it up. Is it like a type of almost like roving? There's no doubt there's a technical way to explain these yarns that I'm not familiar with. I'm sorry if you can hear the garbage truck going around outside. But it pills. It's kind of, if you sit down on a light colored couch, it's going to get, that color on there a little bit. And I wouldn't use it again. So it's a shame because I really like the top. So I still kind of did wear it, and I have to wear a black camisole or top underneath, and that was always covered in the yarn after you took it off. So you almost needed like a dedicated black top to wear with this, because yeah, you're never ever going to be able to wear it again with something else. Even after washing, it's still these bits of wine colored yarn all over it. So yeah, maybe I need to knit this top again, perhaps using a different yarn. Although I did also find out with this top, now I knit the size large, and I didn't really realize it, or maybe just didn't really think about it at the time, but actually it only goes up to a size XL, which I don't know. I understand that for small designers it can be really challenging. It's a lot of extra work to make your patterns size inclusive, but I know that there are some really great designers and small designers who do make that effort, and I fully appreciate that, and I kind of like to support that as well. So when I realized that, and because she has a few other patterns that I quite liked the look of, but again from memory they didn't go further than a size XL, which I don't know, left me with a bad taste in my mouth. I guess we all have different thoughts on that, but you know, we're going to be investing our money and our time in knitting these beautiful products, and there are so many wonderful patterns out there. But otherwise I love this kind of a style of jumper. I find it's really it looks nice when you wear it, and it was a fun pattern to knit. So next up, I did a test knit for Kelly Menzies. I did the Arrowroot beanie test, and I knit the junior size for my daughter. And from memory, it was a great pattern with lots of different options. I think the pattern came from child through to adult sizes. You could do it with a folded brim or a fitted style, or yeah, I think there was a few different options in the pattern, which was great. Yeah, it was a fun, quick knit that, yeah, my daughter liked to wear then to school, which was perfect. And I knit that in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the color teal. All right, still in January, I was knitting a lot in January. I knit a pair of the world's simplest mittens by Tin Can Knits, and they are what it says on the cover. They are really simple mittens. Is it a free pattern? I think it might be a free pattern even. Can't remember. I will write below the screen, I'm sure. But they were really straightforward, and the pattern you can do in all different yarn weights. So you could do fingering through to chunky wool. I knit these again in the Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool. Love that yarn, by the way, really lovely and soft. And that's also in the teal, so I made it to match for my daughter, these mittens, and I made them to match her hat in the same color, and they were great. We got a lot of wear out of them. That's the only time I've knit that pattern, but it's another one I could definitely do again. I think especially for kids mittens, they were really, really good. So yeah, they were great. Then going into February, still using Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool, but in a different color, smoky blue. I knit the Easy Eyelet Yoke sweater by Knitatude. And this is a really popular pattern of hers. I think she has this in a cardigan and a dress. I knit the sweater, and it is quite fun, quite straightforward, and made a nice, comfy sweater to wear in the winter time. I got a reasonable amount of wear. I think it was a really great around the house kind of jumper, but it's not something I think actually, much as I adore that Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool, it does like pill a little bit. I don't know. I always thought it didn't look really, how do I explain it? It always looked worn. Even after I de-pilled it, and when it was freshly, newly blocked and everything, it always looked a bit worn. So like an around the house comfortable thing to wear out and about, it was really good, but it wasn't really something that I wore out to brunch or something like that. But for a pattern, especially if you were a beginner knitter and looking for something fairly straightforward, it was a really good pattern, easy to read, and the little eyelets around the yoke just add that little bit of interest and something more in the pattern there for you. After that, I finished my very first Stephen West pattern, which was the Vertices Unite. Now, I bought the yarn for this the previous year in a kit to do the Stephen West MCAL, which that year was called, yeah, no, it's gone. It was like a choreography style name. It'll come to me later. I bought it for that. I did the first clue. I thought, oh my goodness, this is too much work. I really enjoyed it because his videos and instructions were really, really excellent, and it was fun to follow on, and I was doing new techniques, and that was great, but I just didn't want to dedicate an entire month of my knitting time to one project. So I gave in, threw in the towel after finishing clue 1 and put the yarn aside, and then was keeping my eye out for how I could use this beautiful yarn because I thought it worked, the colors worked so well together. And I don't know if I came across the pattern or someone recommended the Vertices Unite, also by Stephen West, which uses 5 different colors. And I really enjoyed the pattern. It took me a long time. I started it in October. I finished it in February, so it took me a few months to get through it, but it was a project that I started and then I put down for a while and then I picked up again, which, that's okay. But it made what I thought was a really, really lovely shawl, which is really comfortable to wear. The yarn I didn't mention is the Isega yarn Alpaca 2. And I won't go through the colorways. There's links below if you want to look at all the different colorways in there, but I think they worked really nicely all together, and I could see myself knitting this pattern again maybe sometime in the future because it is about playing with different colors, so you can make a really completely different looking shawl just by choosing different colors, and I'd love to see it in some blues and grays. Would look nice too, but yeah, we'll see, because of course there are many other things I would like to knit, including many other Stephen West patterns. I think that's the only Stephen West one that I've knit before. Yeah, but I found it was fun. I'm not sure the MCAL will ever be for me. I was really enjoying watching along just the past year at the MCAL, but I was quite also glad that I hadn't signed up to do it. It's a lot of knitting. Next up in March, I knit the Sunday socks by Petite Knit, which are a very popular pattern, and I can see why. They were a lot of fun to knit. These are in Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the color oatmeal, and they were really, because they're the Aran weight, I think, so they're quite quick to knit up for socks. And really cozy and comfortable to wear at home on cold mornings, but I put a hole in them almost straight away because it's not sock yarn, and I haven't repaired them, so I should do that one day because they are lovely and cozy. But lesson learned, I think that was the recommended yarn. Yeah, but you probably shouldn't walk in them. They're probably only good for wearing to bed if they're in that yarn, because they're not going to last very long, which is always a shame once you've put all that time in to knit something for it to, then get a big hole in them. But they are in my bag to mend one day in the future. We'll see. And then after that one in March, I knit my husband a sweater. He had been saying for quite a while, oh, look at all this knitting you've done. When are you going to knit something for me? So I said, I will, I promise, one day. Finally I did. I knit this single malt by Maxim. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, sorry. And yeah, it was really good. I had to do the yoke twice because it was going to be too small, so I had to size up. But it fits in really nicely and it looks great. Guess what yarn I used? The Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool. I didn't actually realize I used this yarn so much. But clearly it was a theme at the beginning of last year. In the color grey. Actually though, for my easy eyelet, which I knit using the Phil Peruvian Highland wool, and I said it looked real tidy, it kind of pilled and looked a bit messy. Actually, in using it in the single malt, it looks great. It's a really great yarn, and I think because the yarn already, the pattern has that texture in it, so you don't really notice any pilling, and it looks really good, and it's lovely and soft. So yeah, so he really enjoys wearing it, and it's super warm. So yeah, it was a great pattern. It got a lot of wear, so that was great. And then at the end of March, I did another test knit, and I knit what is probably the garment I'm most proud of knitting, which was the Sanddorn sweater, which I did by Valentina Bogdanova, sorry. And it has this amazing yoke. It's really stunning. It took a lot of work. You have to make all the little baubles, these tiny little ones, and there was like thousands of them. But it's really worth it because I think it's just a lovely top, and it's, yeah, it was a really lovely, comfortable fit. This one is still in Filcolana, but this time Filcolana Anina, which is a fingering weight, and it's another yarn that I really love and can highly recommend. I think this one, Filcolana Anina, is actually superwash. And super soft and great for baby knits, which will come up in a minute too. I would love to, this is the only one of her patterns that I've knit, but she has some really interesting, gorgeous patterns, obviously often with really beautiful yokes. So I would like to knit some more of hers in the future as well. So, but that was the Sanddorn sweater. After that, I did a quick little headband for my daughter in some leftover Peruvian Highland wool, the color teal. So she then had a beanie in that color, some mittens, and now a little headband. I didn't have a pattern. I just made that one up and did a little twist, so it looks super cute. And yeah, again, that was a good one for her to wear to and from school in those cold, when we were the beginning of last year, we were in Germany, so it was cold, it was winter, especially for the school run, so that was perfect. I then made a love note, the very popular love note by Tin Can Knits, and I knitted that using Filcolana Avetta in the color burgundy with the Lamana Premier in the color number 16, which is the mohair. And my previous experience with mohair hadn't been super positive. I found myself to be a bit sensitive to it, and it kind of itched me and irritated me, whereas the Lamana Premier has a higher silk content, and so it's lovely and soft, and I have no itching with that one at all. So yeah, and no, it's a really nice top. I don't know where it is, it's packed away somewhere, and I'm looking at the photos now thinking I need to get it back out again for some, because I think even, you know, in Sydney, yes, we are in summer right now, but last week was we had some really cold days, and because I did 3/4 length sleeves on this one, I think for some of those kind of cooler days, I could definitely be wearing that one right now. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the pattern. Many people have knit it. It's a fun pattern, a really sweet yoke, and it's pretty quick to knit, you know, like for a garment. So I know there are lots of people who knit this, have knit 3 or 4 love notes, and yeah, I could see myself doing that as well, but not anytime soon. I then had another test knit. I did quite a few test knits last year. Yeah, I was on a bit of a roll. I see no test knits in my future, but last year I had the time and the space, and I did quite a few test knits, which was quite a lot of fun. And so I did the Creative Flow Shawl by Hanna Lübben, who's Herb Garden Knitwear, and it's a really fun shawl pattern. she's written it so that I followed the instructions, but you have the option of, she gives some instructions if you want it to look a certain way, but also it's a pattern that's a bit of a recipe so that you can put together different elements to create your own individual shawl, which was a lot of fun. And it was fun playing with colors, although obviously the colors I chose were black, grey and white, but I just think that makes a really lovely, versatile, very wearable scarf as well. And again, I'm not going to go through all the colorways. I will put them all linked below. But yeah, really probably, so I did the Vertices Unite as a shawl, and then I did this one, and I know I did another really lovely shawl last year that will come up in a bit. And it was definitely, yeah, a year for loving these really interesting, beautiful shawls. And again, I'm looking at it thinking I need to get another something like that on my needles, because I think they're really fun projects. I find them really fun, and I think the result is really spectacular. So yeah, that was a lovely pattern. Then I did the Petal Party Crop by Samantha Guerin, and I knit that in Sanders Garn Alpaca Silk, and in the color 5063. And yeah, this is another really wonderful pattern, and it's a great summer pattern, and I wore it quite a lot. I've got a picture of myself wearing it when we're on holidays in Barcelona. The only problem is the yarn. It just scratches and irritates me a little bit. I put up with it because I quite liked wearing the top. It's a lovely boxy fit with these 2 panels down the side, which is lace, which means it's quite airy as well, which is great for summer. But yeah, that yarn, because of course, a yarn that's going to irritate you a little bit is going to be even worse when you're warm, and so is the summer top. It was a terrible yarn choice, but that's where I'm learning about different yarns, and I'm learning about how I as an individual react to them, and yeah, what not to use in future. Takes me sometimes a couple of tries to learn that lesson though, but that's all right. But yeah, it's a beautiful pattern, and she again has some really lovely patterns, and I've got one that I'm thinking of maybe casting on in the very near future as another summer top. Then I did another test knit. I did the Seed Stars Tank by Daku, and yeah, this is another really fun pattern because as a summer top, it has some lace detail petaling on the sides, which again keeps it kind of cool, little bit of air. And I knit this in the BC Yarn Bio Balance GOTS in the color Harbour, and I think, yes, I did, definitely. I held that yarn double. I haven't really gotten a lot of wear out of this top, and I'm not sure why, because it's quite, it looks nice. It's quite comfortable to wear. I think because the yarn's held double, it's a summer top, but it's a bit warm. So that's probably one of the reasons. And, also, I don't know, maybe if I think about what's in my wardrobe and what I tend to wear these days, I don't wear many tank tops anymore. Maybe that's just where I'm getting to at an age, and don't necessarily have the same figure that I used to have when I wore more crop tops, but like I should just wear them because I still quite like them. So yeah, but it was a fun pattern. It is a nice summer top, but yeah, holding the yarn double I think kept it a bit warm, but otherwise the yarn is really nice and soft and was fun to work with. I think it's actually a blend. I'm trying to bring, yeah, it's wool, 55% wool and 45% cotton, which is why I thought it would work not too bad as a summer top as well. Then I did another test knit. So many. I knit this one here that I'm wearing today, which is my Crescendo summer top, which is by Sophie the Knit Purl Girl. And she has this as a blouse, I think using mohair and also a chunkier version. So she has this particular Crescendo yoke design in a few different variations, and I'd really love to do the blouse one. Maybe this coming winter I might get that on my needles. Yeah, it was fun to be part of the test knit. I really like the yoke. I find, and actually the reason I am wearing it today is because I realized it's a top I haven't worn at all, but I think about the time I finished this one in July, and it was around about that time when we were packing up to move from Germany back home to Australia. So I think actually what happened is the reason this top hasn't been worn is just because it got packed up not long after it being finished. And so you're not getting a great view of me wearing it right now today, but it actually, it really needs to be blocked again because it is quite creased up and everything else, but that's all right. But wearing it right now, it's really comfortable. It's quite boxy, you can see, but actually I think it falls quite nicely, the yarn. So yeah, I will probably get a little bit more wear out of it, I think, now that I've pulled it out again. This is knit in the Crea Deluxe Organic Cotton in the colour 44, all these numbers. And I ordered the yarn online, and when I got it, it was a little bit paler than I thought. So I'm sure I mentioned this when I first talked about it. I'm not sure that the colour's really the best colour for me and my features, but you know, that's fine. Like I will still get a bit of wear out of it. I quite like it, and I like this little I think that's an I-cord edging around the collar here as well. So yeah, that's the Crescendo summer top. I am kind of getting through these fairly quickly. I thought it might take me all day, but we're getting through the year. I then did another shawl, which was the Miss May shawl by Helen Stewart, who is Curious Handmade, and this was an MCAL. So I said that I'm not sure that the Stephen West MCAL will be for me, but I did do the Helen Stewart MCAL and I really enjoyed it. I love this shawl. And if she does an MCAL again this year, I think there's a decent chance I will sign up for it because I thought it was really good. I mentioned the Sanddorn sweater is probably the garment I'm most proud of knitting last year. This shawl is probably overall the thing that I'm most proud of knitting. It was the item that when I finished it, and you know, when you finish a shawl and it's lace and it looks a bit scrunchy and all of that, but then you block it and it opens up and you think, wow, I made this. And I felt so proud and a little bit in love with it. So yeah, I'm really, really, really proud of that. And it looks great. I've worn it out quite a few times with a black dress, going out for a nice meal or something and wrapping it around, and I feel very elegant. I knit this in Scuderia Pinta hand dyed in the colorway Macchiato, and the pattern, I think you could have done it in 3 or 4 colors. You could have chosen different colors, and I chose to do it just in one straight color, and I'm really glad I did because I just think it looks beautiful, and I like mine more than the ones that you chose multiple colors. So I'm really glad that I made that decision. Anyway, so that was the Miss May shawl MCAL. I need to knit some more of her patterns. I really like them. Yeah, and I hope she does another MCAL this year. After that, I finished up the Rift by Jacqueline Cieslak in using through Valborg alias DK in the color Aubergine. And yeah, it was a fun pattern. It's knit from the bottom up, so it was the first time I had knit a garment from the bottom up, which means I knit it like a bralette, so short the first time, and had to start again from scratch to make sure, well, not from scratch, no I didn't. Yeah, no, I just had to pull back a little bit and add a whole lot more length so that it wasn't too cropped. Yeah, and I have worn it a little bit out and about. It actually, I've worn it mostly at home because it's a little bit see-through. you know, wear a black bra underneath, and it's fine. Like, I have actually worn it down to the shops. It's not offensive, it's totally okay, but probably it needs another little camisole or top underneath, which means that for summer it starts getting a little bit warm to wear then. Yeah, but otherwise it's quite good. The V-neck on it, for me, I would have preferred to have a bit more depth in the V-neck. And so, yeah, I need to look at the pattern. I'm not sure whether I could have done that within this particular pattern, but I would really like to knit some more V-necks because it's a style that I like. And so it's something I know now that I need to be quite mindful of when I'm looking for patterns. There were a few variations within this pattern that you could do, whether you could did a split hem, and you could actually make it reversible, because you could do a boat neck or a V-neck and things like that. So from that point of view, it was a fairly versatile pattern. Yeah, the rift. Then I finished, did I finish these? I did these whilst traveling. I did these just before we left Germany. I'm trying to look in August. The Willem's summer overalls in Filcolana Anina in the colorway oatmeal. So this was the leftover yarn from my Sanddorn sweater. And this pattern is by Petite Knit, and it's a lovely, fun, cute pattern. And I gifted it to my new nephew, who I, at that time, was very anxious to meet when I got back home. And I'm pleased to report that it fit him, and he looked absolutely adorable in it. And my brother and his partner were really very, very knit-worthy people. They were very appreciative, and you know, were quite keen to, you know, really also look after those overalls as a bit of an heirloom and something to keep for him in the future as well, which made my day and was so precious. And there's something really really pleasurable, and it's not quite the right word I'm looking for though, knitting for loved ones who are far away. I did a lot of that, and there is something quite wonderful about being able to do that and being able to think about that person whilst you're knitting that object, and then for it to be so appreciated when you give it, and recognize that that love is in there, is just really great. So yeah, there's the Willem's summer overalls. I then was back in Australia. We moved. I started this pattern, the lightweight hipster shawl, whilst we were traveling before we left Germany, and finished it back home in Australia as part of, she had her knit along, I forgot what it was called, Hohi Locatelli, and yeah, it's a one skein shawl, and it was quite fun to knit. And I wore it a little bit. I haven't been wearing it, I haven't worn it recently because I got more wear out of it kind of, you know, in the cooler months, but as a kind of, as the name suggests, lightweight hipster, as a really lightweight easy shawl to just throw on, it was quite good. So, and I knit this in beef sugar yarn, sock yarn in the color fruit salad, which is so fun, and it's a lovely colorway. I then did another baby top because I still had some Filcolana Anina in the color oatmeal left, so I made the baby vertebrae by Kelly Van Niekerk. And yeah, I really recommend this pattern. I think it's a really practical. The overalls that I made for my nephew looked super cute. The baby vertebrae also looked super cute, but I think is also a little bit more practical. So yeah, and I think in this pattern, I think there you can purchase the pattern in different sizes, up to adult size even. So, but I think this is a good option for a go-to baby gift knit. And that Filcolana Anina for baby knits, excellent, really a great yarn. I then did another one skein shawl because I knit the Hohi Locatelli, the lone skein shawl, and that started my love of single skein shawls. although I haven't done another one since then, I don't think, although I have plans. I do have plans. And I knit this in Fine Fish Yarns Merino Singles in the colour Bacao, which was a nice yarn. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, this isn't a shawl I would do again. I mean, the lightweight hipster I quite like. Maybe I would do it again, except those little crisscross things, I'm not sure what you call them, were rather painful to do, and there's a lot of them. Whereas the Lone Skein shawl, you know, it was a nice pattern, it was fun to knit, but I didn't feel like there was anything particularly exciting about it, and there are so many great patterns out there that I would probably look for another one. I also ran out of yarn, and so I had to finish a couple of rows early, which is fine, but it probably means that it just needs to stretch it out a little bit more. It could really benefit from having an extra couple of inches on it. And it then meant I didn't have any yarn to do little tassels, which I think would have looked nice on it. I did the little picot edges, which is cute, but yeah, it's maybe a little bit short. So this was one that I didn't find really that I was grabbing to get much wear out of. After that, I did my first Sophie scarf by Petite Knit. A pattern that seemed everywhere on Instagram at the time, and I can see why, because it was really, really simple and easy and a fun, practical knit. I made mine super, super long so I could wrap it around a couple of times, and I think it looks quite cute. I used Sadness Garn Tin Merino, Tin? In the colour Grey Green 7741, and yeah, it was really good. It was so good that I knit a second one, which I'll show you in a bit. Yeah, it's a really straightforward pattern, so like a nice mindless, rather than when you want something that's a bit mindless but isn't just stockinette, I think it's going to be perhaps a little bit of a go-to for me. After that, I finished the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague, another very, very popular pattern, and I can see why, because it was a really fun knit, very easy to do. The pattern has it worked out for all different gauges of yarn, so you can do, again, fingering through to, you know, really chunky yarn. And you knit a big tube and then you just tuck it in and you've got this lovely warm cozy beanie. Mine is too big, but I don't care. It's super cozy and I love it. I started knitting this on the very, very long flight back home from Germany to Sydney and got through quite a lot, and then ran out of yarn and had to, because I think I'd bought it in the UK when we were traveling, so I had to then scour the internet to try and find an extra ball, and let's not talk about what I paid for it. But it was worth it because it's the West Yorkshire Spinners Bo Peep Pure in the colour Dandelion, and it's beautiful and soft and squishy, and I love the colour. I haven't worn it at all, but that's because I finished it in the springtime in Australia, and so there's not much need for a super warm beanie, but it'll get cold enough here soon, and yeah, I'm sure I will get some wear out of it then. So yeah, and I can see why this pattern is so popular, and I think there's a good chance I will knit another one perhaps when the weather gets cooler. I then knit the Aosta cardigan by the Knit Purl Girl, and I used the Australian Wool Store 100% Superwash 14 ply wool in the colour Deep Teal. It's a really fun pattern. It's got this stitch pattern, which is really nice and makes it a bit interesting to knit, but it's in a super chunky wool, and that for me is not super pleasurable. Knitting with thick needles, and the result is a cardigan that's quite nice, but it's really, really heavy. And yeah, like to throw on over my shoulders at home on cold nights, it's great for that, but I don't know, it's maybe not really my style, these chunky knits. But again, that's where sometimes we have to kind of go through these things and knit them, and before we figure out that, you know, maybe that's not quite right for me. Although I don't guarantee that I won't go and make that mistake again in the future, probably will. But yeah, but otherwise the pattern's a lot of fun, and you know, being in a chunky yarn means it's knits up relatively quickly as well. So we're nearly through, just 2 more to go, because then I finished the body cabled ear warmer headband in November, which is by Mariana Mel, and using, what did I use? It just says here Superfine Merino in the color Way Penstemon. Let me see if I can find what the yarn is called. Nope, no idea. On my podcast, when I talked about this headband, I just raved about how much I loved it. I have knit this pattern a couple of times and it's really fun. It's a really nice simple cables, and I think it looks really lovely as well, the finished result. So it was one of the first patterns that I knit, and I remember being so chuffed and so impressed with myself that I could knit something like this. So it's a nice little go-to pattern. It's a free pattern too, so highly recommend it. And then the last item that I knit in 2022 was another Sophie scarf. I had to travel to Singapore for work, and so pretty much knit this exclusively on the flight. It was a day flight, so I sat on my bottom watching movies, knitting, and cast on at the airport, cast off 15 minutes before landing. It was the perfect project for that. I just knit the small size using Filcolana Arvetta in the color Deep Mahogany, and it looks really good. And I did this as a little gift for my friend whose birthday was coming up not long after that. So yeah, it was a really great go-to pattern for that one. So that's everything I knit in 2022. It was a lot. It was a lot. What's interesting to reflect on is how there were a lot of knits in the first half of the year, and everything slows down a lot in the second half of the year. But that makes a lot of sense because I was traveling. I wasn't working in the first half of the year. We were living in Germany, and then we came home and it was all the job of finding a place to live. We had to buy a new car. I started a new job, and so the amount of knitting time that I had suddenly shrunk dramatically. I'm trying everything I can to claw back as much knitting time as I can get, but I don't think I'll ever be back up to quite the numbers that I was at the beginning of last year. So yeah, if you got through all of that, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about any of the patterns, I've kind of only touched on them briefly. Some of these patterns, obviously, I spoke about in my podcast, but I started podcasting in maybe May, was it, last year? So the earlier patterns I won't have talked about. So if you would like to know anything more about any of them, I'm more than happy to go to talk about them and go through that with you. But otherwise, I hope wherever you are in the world, you are having a magnificent day and you are getting lots of wonderful knitting time. And I will see you next time, just for a normal podcast.